We have nothing to lose here. Give her everything she needs to work on Shepard's trajectories without redaction. Are we clear on that?
Because the numbers mattered more than the rules, and Katherine Johnson understood those numbers better than anyone in the room. But progress was about to change everything, because NASA had just installed a massive new machine, the IBM computer. It was enormous, loud, and capable of processing thousands of calculations faster than any human mathematician. One afternoon, Katherine was called into Al Harrison's office again. This time, his tone was different, respectful, but regretful. "Progress is a double-edged sword," Harrison said. With the IBM now producing huge amounts of data, the Space Task Group no longer needed a human computer in their department. Catherine Goebel was being reassigned. "Let's have you report back to the West Computing Group now," Harrison told her. Catherine nodded politely. But the message was clear. The machine had replaced her.
Long story short, we no longer need a computer in this department. Progress is a double-edged sword. Let's have you report back to the West Group for now. Catherine, I'm sorry about this. It's out of my hands, if you can believe that.
I understand.
She returned to the West Computing office, the room filled with the brilliant black women mathematicians who had been doing NASA's calculations long before the engineers even noticed them. Meanwhile, inside the Space Task Group, the countdown to history had begun. NASA was preparing to launch John Glenn aboard Friendship 7. If the mission succeeded, Glenn would become the first American astronaut to orbit the Earth. But there was still one enormous problem: re-entry. The spacecraft would circle Earth at nearly 17,000 miles per hour. If the trajectory was even slightly wrong, Glenn could burn up in the atmosphere or land hundreds of miles away from the Navy ships waiting to recover him. The engineers needed precise calculations showing exactly when and where the capsule should begin its descent.
We have a confirmed launch window for Friendship 7. Let's discuss a landing zone.
The Navy needs a singular landing zone.
20 miles square is what we can service for retrieval. Outside of that, we risk the capsule's recovery.
We'd like 3 possible recovery areas.
We can't cover half the damn ocean.
Eventually, the IBM computer produced the numbers, but the machine was still new, and astronaut John Glenn wasn't willing to trust his life to a machine alone, so he made a request. Before he would climb into the capsule, he wanted someone to verify the computer's calculations. Not an engineer, not another computer, one specific person. The girl, Katherine Johnson. The room suddenly realized something. The mathematician they trusted most was no longer there.
Paul, something's off here. These landing coordinates don't match yesterday's. Well, then the IBM's wrong yesterday. Paul, am I right?
It appears so.
Al Harrison immediately turned to his team. "Get the girl," he ordered. "Have her check the numbers."
Let's get the girl to check the numbers.
The girl?
Yes, sir.
You mean Catherine?
Smart one. I mean, she says they're good. I'm ready to go.
Sam, go find Catherine Goebel. She needs to verify Glenn's go, no-go, or we're staying on the ground.
Engineers rushed through the halls of NASA searching for Catherine Goebel. Back in the West Computing office, Catherine was quietly working when the message arrived.
Looking for Catherine Goebel.
It's Catherine Johnson now.
They need you to verify these coordinates.
They needed her. Again, because when the mission depended on the numbers, everyone knew there was only one person who could truly confirm them.
All right, give us some space so to work.
Catherine Johnson carefully checked the computer's calculations, line by line, step by step, and when her numbers finally matched the computer's results, the mission was ready.
Gentlemen, let's launch this rocket.
Catherine did manage to calculate a few decimal points further than that hunk of metal.
Well, I will take every digit you got. Be sure to thank her for me.
Minutes later, the engines of Friendship 7 roared to life. John Glenn lifted into the sky, becoming the first American to orbit the Earth. And behind that historic moment, behind the trajectory, behind the equations that guided him safely home, was the brilliant mind of a woman who had once been told she was no longer needed. Katherine Johnson, one of NASA's most important hidden figures.
Oh, that view is tremendous.
You are a go for orbit.
Thank you, Capcom.
All right, 10.5 hours to go. If we make 7 round trips. I could use a coffee.
Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, Mary Jackson, they proved that the success of the space race depended not only on rockets and astronauts, but also on the hidden figures working behind the scenes. For decades, their stories remained largely unknown. NASA celebrated astronauts, engineers, and directors, but rarely recognized the women whose calculations helped send America into space. That began to change with Margot Lee Shetterly's 2016 book Hidden Figures and the powerful film adaptation that followed. In 2015, President Barack Obama awarded Katherine Johnson the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor. In 2017, NASA named a new research facility after her, the Katherine G. Johnson Computational Research Facility. Today, their names are no longer hidden. Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson are remembered as pioneers who expanded not only the boundaries of space, but also the boundaries of opportunity. Their story is not only one of struggle, but of triumph. They proved that genius cannot be segregated and that courage can reshape both history and the future. As we look back on the space race, their legacy reminds us of a simple truth. The greatest leaps forward are measured not only in miles or orbits, but in justice, equality, and the strength of the human spirit. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories from history and film.